The congressman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. China yesterday said that they held $682 billion of our debt, and that they were very concerned about the reckless policies of our spending. And they were concerned so much that they contacted our new Secretary of the Treasury and said, we want some kind of a guarantee that our money is going to be worth something if you guys keep spending so much over there and devalue not only your currency but the currencies throughout the world. Well, today, China reversed its position and said, Liu Ping, the Director General of the Chinese Banking Regulatory Commission, said in a speech in New York, we're still going to buy your treasuries, because where else are we going to put our money? Because the United States is still the biggest economy and the best place to put our money, but we're really upset with you because you're devaluing your currency, and you're going to be devaluing ours as well. And he said this, except for U.S. treasuries, what can you hold? He said, gold. You don't hold Japanese government bonds or UK bonds. U.S. treasuries are still the safest haven for everyone, including China. But you're devaluing your currency over there, and we don't want ours devalued, but we don't have any place to go. He said further on, we hate you guys, using his language. We hate you guys. Once you start issuing $1 trillion, $2 trillion, or more in dollars, we know the dollar's going to depreciate, so we hate you guys, but there's nothing else we can do. Now, what does that tell us as Americans? This is a chart showing the amount of money in circulation in the United States, and you can't see my colleagues who might be watching in their offices, but you can see that the amount of money in circulation was pretty steady up until about the last 10 or 12 years, and then you see it's just risen like a rocket. It's just gone straight up. And that's before we started all this spending we're talking about right now, which worries not only us, but the Chinese and Japanese and others that hold an awful lot of our debt and are buying more right now as we speak. What's going to happen tomorrow is we're going to spend another $800 billion, almost $1 trillion. The Secretary of the Treasury said the other day that he was going to have to put probably another $1 trillion or maybe even $2 trillion into the banking system in this country to make sure everything continues on the right path. We're going to spend another $400 billion in an omnibus spending bill in a couple of weeks. So we're looking at probably $2 to $3 trillion in additional spending before too long, and it's going to probably triple the amount of money we have in circulation over the long pole. In the short haul, maybe only about half of that, maybe only $1 trillion or $2 trillion or $1.5 trillion. But what that means is the amount of money in circulation is going to go up like a rocket, and that is what we call inflation. Because the amount of goods and services produced by this country is not increasing at a rapid rate right now because of the economy. And so we're going to have pretty much the same amount or maybe a little bit less of goods and services being sold in this country, but we're going to have almost twice as much money. So the amount of money chasing goods and services is going to double, which means when you go to buy something, it's going to cost a lot more. If you have 100 quarts of milk, and I used this illustration the other night, and you have $100, then a quart of milk is going to cost about $1. But if you double the amount of money to $200 or $300, then the quart of milk is going to go up at the same rate. That's the law of supply and demand. And we're putting so much money in circulation that we are going to have, in my opinion, hyperinflation. Now, we had this back in the 1970s. It was worse then than it is now. Jimmy Carter was president. We had double-digit inflation, 14%. That's what we call hyperinflation. It'll probably be worse than that now. We had double-digit unemployment. We have 7% now. It was 12% back then. And so they brought a guy in named Volcker to do something about it. And he raised interest rates to 21.5%, and we had the worst recession up until that time for probably 30 or 40 years. And then Ronald Reagan was elected. He came in and he cut taxes and stimulated economic growth, and we had one of the longest periods of economic recovery in American history. We're doing the same thing today that Carter did back in the 70s. I don't think my colleagues, most of them remember that because they're too young. And we're not going to profit from history. But what we're doing is we're throwing money at the problem instead of solving the problem by creating an economic recovery. And the way to create an economic recovery is to give business, industry, and American citizens as much of their tax money back as possible so they can spend it. They can spend it more wisely than the government of the United States. And if you ask all of your neighbors, said, who could spend $100 better, you or the government, and most of them will say, we can. We've got to control spending, and we're not doing it. We're heading in the wrong direction. We're printing money. We're going to be printing money at a very rapid rate, and it's going to cost everybody in this country and the future generations a great deal, not only in inflation, but more taxes and a quality of life. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 6, 2009,